Hello, I'm James Helder. Welcome to a very special episode on Pitch Football of the January Transfer Window Roundup. I'm quite fortunate enough to be joined by my Southampton guests, as it's the turn of Southampton today. None other than Joe Mellor. Great to have you with us, Joe. How you doing, champ? And we're also joined by Richard Luffman. Great to have you with us, Rich. How you feeling?
Yeah, good as gold, mate. Thank you.
Good, good. Where do we start with Southampton this season? Currently languishing bottom of the Premier League, but they are joint on points with three rivals. Is there any light at the tunnel? Before we get into all the nitty and gritty of it, tell me how you would assess Southampton's season so far, and I'm going to go straight to Richard on this one. What's your thoughts, Richard?
Well, I think it's been a bit the same as it's been for the last couple of years. I think really we have good spells and bad spells, and the new manager seems to have taken over Ralph on that in the sense that he lost his first four, and then we've gone on a little run and put 3 wins together, and that's sort of been the message for Saints for the last 2-3 years. We went top of the Premier League 2.5 years ago and then couldn't win a game to the end of the season. So not a lot has changed. I think for us, if we can finish outside the bottom 3, I think we'd have to class it as a successful season. The worrying bit is when you look at the teams you're down there with and you go in Everton, West Ham, Leicester, you know, they're big clubs that have spent far much more money than what we have and invested a lot more into their club. And I suppose really for us now, and the Premier League's evolved so much over the last 5-6 years, that staying in the Premier League is probably as good as it will get for us as a football club until we can, well, that's probably as good as it will ever be. So it's going to be tough. I think if everyone was picking their bottom 3, we're probably in the majority of people, us and Bournemouth. But there's a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. It's a flicker of a light, but there's a little bit there after obviously 3 great wins and the win at Everton last Saturday. So, yeah.
I think you make some great points there, Richard, and I'm going to touch on them. Initially, I'm just going to get Joe's thoughts of how Southampton's season's been going thus far. Joe, what have you made of it?
It's been a tough one because we've not been good enough, really. We've got some young players, some really, really good young players, but they're not Premier League experienced yet, which is the issue. We've got people like Samuel Edozie who's come on, he's done really well. Romeo Lavia, who has been absolutely sensational, but he's been injured. Tino Livramento's been injured. And I fear we lack leaders. You look at James Ward-Prowse as the only leader we've got at the moment. But over the last 3 games, the Everton game was amazing when we come back into it. We looked the better team. The Man City game was phenomenal. We played amazing. It was the best performance I've seen for a few years from the Southampton team, where I don't think we had any sort of chances against us, really. But we need to just keep going and keep working hard.
Now, you mentioned the recruitment policy, as well as you said not enough experience. You've signed some really great young players. With not having the funds as some of your rival clubs available to spend, do you think that was a good, shrewd move by the club to bring in young talents who have got a resale value, who have got probably an unknown ceiling to how good they can be? I'm going to go straight to Richard on this one.
Well, it's a risk, you know. I think the trouble is we can't compete financially with the vast majority of the Premier League. There used to be sort of 2 divisions. It was the top 6 and then the rest. I think that's changed again. I think we got the top 6, we got a middle third, and then we've got the smaller clubs. And unfortunately for us, we fit into that bracket. I mean, we signed Joe Aribo, who's got, you know, some age and some size about him, and he's flattered to deceive, in all honesty. And the younger boys have done okay. Edozie's shown some really good promise. Lavia looks a good player, but hasn't got fit. It's a risk. I think it's one the club probably feel they've got to take. We need to try and buy players that have got some resale value. And the difficulty is, you look at Burnley that dropped out of the Premier League. I mean, none of their players, except from the centre half, ever had any resale value. The proof will be in the pudding come the end of the season, I guess, whether or not it's a risk that's worked out. We've looked really, really poor in some games this year. And, you know, I was at the Notts Forest home game, and I thought that day we were dead and buried, to be honest with you. And obviously we signed the Croatian winger Orkic, or however you say his name. I struggle with the pronunciation of all the footballers now, but so we signed him. You know, 30 years old. That gives us a bit of experience. The centre midfielder that we've got from Spain looks like he could be useful, but time will tell, really. And I think the next 6 or 7 games will sort of show where we're going to be, really.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that, because if we would have done this podcast maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I'm sure you guys would have been a lot more downbeat. But you've had 3 big wins on the spin. I know 2 of them are cup games, so it's a different team in the cup, isn't it? The confidence and league form goes out the window a little bit. But the Everton win in particular was absolutely massive. Saw the Everton fans letting off fireworks at the Southampton team. Everton's been a bit like Brookside recently. There's another saga each and every week. So to take points off of Everton in the manner you did, I'm sure that's going to fill you guys with a lot of optimism and confidence. Joe, what did you make of the Everton game?
So early in the season, we lost to Everton, and it was one of the most disappointing losses I think we've had this season. That, and you say the Nottingham Forest game. So to go to Goodison Park, I know it was sort of a hostile atmosphere. I can imagine the Saints players was up most of their night. But yeah, we lost through a sloppy set piece, that first goal, and then we came back, and that second half it was just a new team. This is me halfway through the game when we got that first goal and was saying, you're going to win this. And we did. We went on, and James Ward-Prowse does what James Ward-Prowse does, and it wouldn't surprise me come the end of the year if we go down that he leaves, unfortunately.
He is such a set-piece specialist, and he's such a huge weapon to have. That's why I was surprised at times he didn't get any game time for England a little bit more, because he's so good at the dead balls. Such a weapon, such an absolute weapon. Richard, if I may ask you, what were your thoughts on the win over Everton? How did you assess that?
Well, I think it was a nip and tuck game, to be honest with you. It could have gone either way. They hit the crossbar at 1-1. And, you know, I've had a couple of other chances at 1-0 as well, that if one of those goes in, it's a different game completely. You've always got a chance when you've got goals on the pitch. And I mean, it's been a shrewd move by Nathan Jones to put Ward-Prowse in the, you know, an advanced area in the 10, because at the end of the day, you want your chances falling to the lads that are going to take them. We've got Shay Adams, who's a workhorse and brings people into play well, but misses hatful of chances week after week. And, you know, and James Ward-Prowse is, I think, I saw a stat the other night, I was watching, I think it was the Man City game, and he's, I think, in the whole across the top 5 leagues since the World Cup, he's the 4th top goal scorer in the division. So it shows you the form that he's in. He got 5 since the return, and free kicks now. I mean, you see Pickford's reaction when Everton give the free kick away. It's almost like they've conceded the penalties that good, you know, and everything's flying in the back of the net. And yeah, it was a tough game. It could have gone either way. We had to not lose the game. A draw would have kept us sort of floating around it, and 3 points was massive for us. So hopefully, you know, that gives us that little bit of momentum. We've got Villa at home Saturday, and if we can go and back that up with another result, 3 points, and you know, at that particular fixture, it probably takes us out the bottom 3 for the first time in a month or two, and you know, that gives us a little bit of a fighting chance, really.
With Villa game coming up, as you mentioned, Richard, straight after that's the Newcastle game. So it's probably imperative that you take points off of Aston Villa if you are to keep pace with the teams in and around and above you. I know that it's really tight at the bottom of the minute, but it's probably imperative that you get something out of the Aston Villa game. It really is.
Yeah, massively. I think the good thing we've got with the Newcastle game, a semi-final can really, two-legged semi-final can really hurt your league form. Fortunately for us, they're sandwiched in the middle of it, Blackpool at home in the FA Cup. So, like you said, we that shouldn't have too much. It shouldn't derail us of anything. And, you know, we're likely losing the semi-final against Newcastle. They're red-hot favourites for it. But it just gives them, if we, like I said, we can get 3 points, they can go into those cup games, enjoy them. And if we get a cup final at the back end of it by the next league fixture, hopefully that can propel a bit of confidence into the fan base, because the support's been crap this year. We just say it as it is. It's not been good. People are on, you know, it's the worst atmosphere at St Mary's I've known in a long time. And we need to start making that place a fortress like it used to be. And it used to be one of the loudest stadiums in the league. It's tailed off. So we need to get some confidence back into the fans, I think, just as much as the players, just to get the place that feel-good factor. And the last week's enabled that a little bit.
Do you know what's a worry for me? Anytime a team that's struggling in the league makes a cup final or cup semi-final, I always think about Middlesbrough when they had that fantastic side. They got to Wembley and they got relegated in the same year, because it's so hard to have that momentum and morale in the cup. And then when the league form's so bad, it's bad. When things aren't going your way, it's a precarious situation to be in. Joe, what's your take on that?
Well, Wigan Athletic had the same, didn't they? They won the FA Cup, also went down. Roberto Martinez soon left for Everton after that, didn't he? But yeah, I think we'll keep going on all fronts. So that Villa game, as you said, is massive. They've got the new manager bounce with Unai Emery, and they're starting to look a good team. I've seen that Danny Ings is going to West Ham, so their big strikers leaving to go to another relegation rival. So it's all kicking off down the bottom of the table. I've seen we're linked with a new striker, Nicholas Jackson from Villarreal.
Okay.
So that's the rumour, 6-month loan and then sign at the end of the season. So I think most clubs down the bottom of there will be signing. Nottingham Forest, another one that keep pulling out transfers left, right and centre. Everton, I've seen they're linked with absolutely everyone but signing no one. So, going into that Villa game is massive. Then we got Newcastle after that, which is just a cup semi-final. One where we could go and enjoy ourselves, really. The same with that Man City game. We're not the favourites over the 2 legs. We got Blackpool jammed in between them. So we'll see how we get on.
I'm glad you mentioned things. I want to talk about new manager Nathan Jones. Some of the other clubs are in a precarious situation where they haven't got rid of their manager yet. They're still in that spiral of free falling. You guys look like you've turned a corner a little bit with the 3 results. I know he suffered his first four games, suffered defeat, but since then, seems like he's turned a corner a little bit. Are you more optimistic now, Richard, that the way things are turning out, the way Nathan Jones has got them playing, he's trying to put his own stamp on the club? What's your take on that?
It's a funny one because I manage non-league myself, so I'm involved in football, and as a manager, I made the decision after 4 games that we had to go, and I've never said that before. I went to the Fulham game away, and we showed a little bit of promise. Not Forest at home was arguably the worst tactically, that we were impotent. We had nothing about us whatsoever. He didn't look that he played a centre half down the middle that needed to step in, and we had Edit kick it centre half and little basic things. We played without a left back for 15 minutes, like while we were chasing the game. And being a liking to think I know a little bit more than most, I'm watching on thinking we're in trouble here, and he's got to go. Since then, like you say, we went to Crystal Palace, expected nothing, got a good win at Crystal Palace, and they played a full strength team, as did we pretty much. We then were absolutely outstanding against Man City, and tactically as good a performance as we've had. And I think now he's gone to Everton, and he's bought himself some time, to be honest, with the week, the 3 wins. And I think we've got to get behind him now. I'm hoping I can really humble pie, and the tweet that I put out about he had to go after four games comes back, and I get that rubbed in my face with a Wembley final and maybe a trophy at the end of it, and I'll be taking the piss out by everybody for jumping the gun too early. But yeah, I think it's an important month or 2. He's put his stamp on the team now. He's got some players in that he signed. That always helps. There seems to be a bit of a relationship between him and Ward Prowse. They're both sort of talking well of each other in the press. Now I know what's said in the press is normally nonsense, but a player doesn't often come out and praise a manager unless he actually believes that. He'd say nothing at all. So they've obviously struck up a relationship. So fingers crossed, we can kick on from here. It's too early. It was too early after 4 games, clearly, and I jumped the gun. And it's still too early after 3 wins. And we're just in that. We're still bottom of the table. We can't forget that. But we're in a better position than we were 7 days ago. And hopefully, in 7 days' time, we're in a better position again. And that's where we got to take it, really.
I think it's got a lot to do with you picking up points and how bad the teams are around you. Like West Ham and David Moyes, they're going through a real frustrating time. If you look at them last season, they don't look like the same side. Everton and Frank Lampard, they've clearly got their issues. Then you've got Leicester with Brendan Rodgers, and Bournemouth, dare I say, who are Bournemouth, they can always be sort of slipped in, I guess. They're not the big scout compared to the other teams, are they?
The issue with that is, I guess, is you look at West Ham's side and you've got Ben Rama, Declan Rice, you've got, Mikel Antonio Samata, the lad from the Brazilian lad centre midfield. You've got proper quality that we don't have. You look at Everton, again, they've still got players that England internationals, the 2 boys at centre half. They've got the England goalkeeper, Damari Gray looks like there's quite Leicester, James Maddison, Harvey Barnes. You'd look at it and go, they're too strong to get dragged down. Certainly Leicester and West Ham into that. I think Everton are really in trouble, if I'm honest. My biggest thing is I can't see three worse teams still than us. That's as well as we've been the last week in terms of the squad, with the exception of Bournemouth and maybe Everton. I don't know the other one we can finish above, and that's where I'm worried a little bit. I think West Ham will have a run. Leicester will have another run like they did prior to the World Cup. Not Forest have obviously had their little spell now where they look like a decent side. So hopefully we can drag them back into it over the next couple of weeks. I think they're one of the poorer sides with Bournemouth, but they've got 5 points in it. So it's just who are the three teams that we're going to finish above. That's the problem, that they're on bad form, but they've got some good players, you know?
The thing about Nottingham Forest is they've got a goal in them. They always seem to score a goal. And when you're at the bottom of the table, scoring goals is a premium. If you've got that in your team and that threat, you can always nick some points. And I feel that's where Southampton have lacked a little bit. I know you mentioned James Ward-Prowse is now playing in a more attacking role. And I'm guessing he's relishing that. When you've not had that opportunity and you're seeing players miss chance after chance and you've got that wand, you know, it must be a great
100%.
feeling for him. And to have the confidence Nathan Jones is instilling in him is probably going to help him a lot. I see him developing as a top player. I really do. Let's talk a little bit about Nathan Jones. He's come from Luton. He's a young British coach. And for one, I love to see British coaches getting the big jobs. It means a great deal to us to see British coaches given a fair chance. Where do you stand on Nathan Jones? And what do you think about him as a manager? I'm going to go straight to Joe Mellor on this.
Okay. We got him when Sean Dyche was available. That was the first issue. He was the sort of unknown manager. He obviously done well with Luton in his two spells, but he had an absolute stinker at Stoke. He came in, he basically had the whole of the World Cup to sort of redevelop the squad, because there was no one on international duty apart from Salosu and the German Bella Kotchap. So basically he had the whole squad to sort of go through the training ground drills, work on his formation, and then when we came back from the World Cup, we looked terrible again. So I think he had a bad start there. And it's only these last three games where he's, I think, trying to get the fans back on side with the way he's playing, with the sort of hybrid 4-2-3-1. Then in defence, it goes to a 5. It's starting to look good. I think we're still going to struggle because our fullbacks, Kyle Walker-Peters is phenomenal, but Roman Perot's not good enough. And it looks like Lanko's gone to more of a right back with like Mohamed El Yunusi playing as like another sort of wing back-esque. I think we've got definitely some silver linings, but we just need to keep playing.
Do you think they'll bring anyone else in during the transfer window?
Yeah. I think.
What are you thinking?
I think another fullback and another striker is what we're going to do. So a right back and a striker.
You mentioned the striker from Villarreal. I've not seen the most of him. Richard, do you think that'll be a good acquisition for the club to bring Jackson in? What's your take on that?
It's unfair of me to probably comment because I haven't seen enough of him. You look at his goals. His goal record doesn't look great. I mean, personally, I'd have been trying to get Danny Ings back. I think getting a proven Premier League goal scorer, and Danny Ings and Shea Adams have played together, and you put those two with Ward-Prowse, and that might just be enough goals to keep you up. They probably didn't want to pay his wage demands. The club, the chairman's come in, or the chair, whatever his position is, Ratcliffe, or he knows he has a model of the type of player he wants to sign, and he's very regimented in that. There's no sell-on value with Danny Ings, but he might have just saved us, 40, 50 million if you get relegated by getting him in. We need a centre midfield player. We've got arguably the worst two centre midfielders in the Premier League in Maitland-Niles and Diallo. Diallo's turned the corner the last couple of games and looked okay in the last couple, but Maitland-Niles is robbing a living as a footballer. And Diallo's a very, very average centre midfield player. And one of those at the moment is playing with Lavia and Ward-Prowse further forward. I think we're crying out for a big, aggressive centre midfield player with a bit of size. I think a lot of the reason he's playing Lianco at right back is purely because we set pieces every single week we have problems. I mean, we went to Fulham and we've lost 2-1 on 2 set pieces. We conceded against Everton. And I think if he plays Peru or another fullback, we lose another 6-footer in the box. And young sides that aren't big and strong, set pieces, you concede lots of goals. So I think they need to sign 3. I think they need a fullback, and arguably one with some size again. We need a centre midfield player, and we need a centre forward. We need a bit of mental and resilience and a bit of toughness in the games that are to come. I think young lads don't often keep you in the Premier League. That's the problem, and we need a few men in there mixed in that can play a bit. So that's the three I would look at.
You know what went through my head then? You don't win nothing with kids. I was just getting it playing through my brain then as you were speaking, Rich. I really am. And I do get what you're saying. At this stage of the season, it's crucial that you've got players in the team that have been there and done it before. You don't want too many unknown quantities. With that said, do you think it would be a shrewd move to bring in maybe some loan signings, some players that are not getting games currently at the Premier League? We saw Crystal Palace take Conor Gallagher last season. He was a revelation for the club. Would you see the club and they're going down that route? Is that something you would consider?
Well, they talked. Conor Gallagher's been talked about a couple of times. I've seen a few little links. I mean, that would be as good a sign as you can get. If we could get him on a 6-month loan, I'd take that over anybody else that we've been linked with, to be honest with you. You could probably play him further forward or in, and drop James Ward-Prowse back in. But you get between the two of those, then you've got an unbelievable midfield three with Lavia when all fit. I mean, it depends who you're talking is available. We took Maitland Niles to Arsenal, and genuinely, I've not seen a poorer player in a Saints yet. I don't know what his position is. So you've got to get some quality with the loan signing. Like Conor Gallagher or Ruben Loftus-Cheek from Chelsea would make a big difference to us. Whether or not we'd be able to get those sort of players, but it depends who really, doesn't it?
You mentioned Maitland Niles. I'm an Arsenal fan, and I generally don't know what his best position is. We used him as a utility player. The poor lad was playing everywhere, week in, week out, when needed to get into the team. He's then gone out on loan. He hasn't had the performances and desired effect. So I'm guessing he's low on confidence as well. And when you're not the manager's player, when a new manager comes in, you know yourself from working in football, it doesn't always fill you with that confidence, because everybody wants to put their own stamp on things, bring in their own players. So I'm guessing he looks like a player to me that needs an arm around him, needs someone to G him up a little bit.
Joe will tell you as well. Joe will tell you, I'm sure. I haven't met a Saints fan yet. The rate, he's just at the car. He doesn't look bothered to be playing whatsoever.
Really?
We play him in that midfield. We played him at fullback in both of the positions. He's not good enough quality wise. He doesn't put the effort in, and he doesn't put the work rate in.
Do you feel he thinks potentially? I hate to say what players think, but do you feel he thinks that the club are maybe a little bit lacking in ambition from where he's come from to where he is now? And that's never good for a player. Sometimes maybe they need a little kick up the arse a little bit.
Yeah, he went on loan to West Brom. They got relegated, and he had it was between us or them to sign him a couple of years ago, and he went with them because they guaranteed him a centre midfield spot, and we were thinking more of as a fullback. And that shows you how long we've been trying to find a fullback. And he went there, and I thought he was dreadful there. I was absolutely gutted when we signed him, to be honest with you. I mean, I genuinely, I thought it's as bad as a sign as would get. But I mean, we've got Livramento to come back at fullback, but he's had another injury, a little injury. I think he's done his hammy. He's got 6 weeks now, and that happens, didn't it, when you've had a big injury. He's a top player. We've got a couple of young kiddies coming through at fullback that they think quite highly of, and I think that's half the problem of why we haven't gone and signed a young lad, because we're blocking the pathway. But and that's where the loan signing comes in. If there's a fullback, and I can't think of one, maybe, to be honest, even like Matty Targett, who's up at Newcastle, not getting a lot of football. If we can get an experienced Premier League player in for 6 months, that might be the solution, rather than having to block the pathway of one of the young lads, or when we know we've got Livramento coming back. But Livramento's been a big loss. He's been a big loss. Good fullbacks are such a premium at the moment, and they're hard to find. And I mean, if you've got some youngsters coming through, you made a big point about blocking their pathway. I'm all about the youngsters getting a chance. Why I say sign someone at the back end of their career who's going to be on massive money when you've got some real talent in your academy. And I might point out, Southampton's academy is absolutely brilliant. Look at the players that you've brought through over the seasons and over the years. There's some top players come through Southampton. So do you think that's a thing they should be trusting their academy a little bit more? What's your take, Joe Miller?
So the issue is we're in a relegation dogfight, and we can't be putting out these 17, 18-year-olds that's had no experience, and they're going down there to fight for their lives. Eventually it will come back with them losing their confidence and back to the under 23s, and then who knows where they go after that, on loan to Crewe Alexander or somewhere like that. So I believe that's why we're sticking Lioncourt on the right back position. The players will play eventually. They're starting the cups. We let Nathan Teller go out on loan, who's been absolutely phenomenal. He was one that came through our youth system, and I'm surprised we've not called him back because he has been amazing for Burnley this year.
Big point.
But yeah, I don't think we will put people in a position where they could fail this point in the season.
That's a big point again. It's a big point again. What's your take on it, Rich?
In terms of playing the young lads in the academy, well, we've got some good ones coming through. I think we've got the best crop. To be honest, it's died down a little bit in terms of the players that have come through. We had obviously unbelievable players, and we had your Callum Chambers, your Ward Prowse, your Oxlade Chamberlains, your Lallana's, your back. There was a lot. There was a real good period. The last few years, we haven't had so many come through. We've been buying young and developing really. By all accounts, the youth team at the moment is Tyler Dibbin, I think his name is. They've got a 16-year-old scored 2 in the youth cup midweek. We beat Villa at their place 4-1. They're really confident we got 3 or 4 in that current batch. A couple of England 18s and 19s internationals. So it looks like the future's quite bright there with 4 or 5 coming through. And when we last had that, unfortunately for us, we were in the sort of lower reaches of League One and the Championship when Lallana and Oxlade Chamberlain and those boys come through, and even going to your Walcotts and your Bales, and we lost them without them ever having a kick for us in the Premier League, with the exception of Lallana. So I think it's important that for those boys that we stay in the Premier League, if we're going to reap the benefits of them rather than just a price in terms of money. But I don't think there's anyone knocking on the door that's ready to go and play in the first team just yet. And again, the problem we've got, that might be the case. You might be in a blood 1 or 2, but our experienced players are 21 and 22-year-olds at the minute. We haven't got many men that are starting games of football. I mean, Stu Armstrong, who I think every Saints fan, again, not met one yet that doesn't rate Stuart Armstrong. He hasn't been fit for most of the season. So we've lost him this year. Oriol Romeu, we should never have let go. A big bloke sent with. I know he wanted to leave, but they should have pleaded him to do another season. I genuinely don't think we'd be in the bottom 3 if Romeu was still at the club.
Big point.
Yeah, and I just think for us, we need men in the team. And unless we sign 1 or 2 men, I fear we'll probably go down this year.
It must be.
It goes back to the.
Go on, Joe. Sorry.
I think it goes back to the point of letting Jose Fonte, Marty Yoshida, all these experienced internationals leave. Cedric Suarez to Arsenal. Ryan Bertrand was another one. I know he's not at game time at Leicester, but these were all experienced internationals who all you could depend upon. And we've not really replaced them. Even since sort of the Sadio Mane days, we tried to replace him with Moussa Djenepo, who, although his goal at City was amazing, he has been pretty poor the majority of the games. Lately our recruitment's not been bad, but over the past sort of 5-6 years, it's not been good enough.
Do you think there's market value in dipping into the Championship and maybe taking 1 or 2 players from there? I know the manager knows the lower tiers of football pretty well. Do you think there's a bargain to be had in the lower leagues in the January window? What's your take, Rich?
Probably. So yes, there are. I mean, we took Jay Adams. I think Jay Adams has been a good signing. I think you have to look at it he's been our top goal scorer the last couple of years, and he's got the 2 assists in the game at Everton. He won the free kick for James Ward-Prowse goal, had the knockdown. So I think he's been a good signing. Adam Armstrong, on the other hand, and again, I know he scored against Crystal Palace. It really hasn't got going. I don't think he's scored 3 or 4 goals since he's been in the club now, and I think it's his 2nd season with us now, and he hasn't really got going. There's such a jump up between the Championship and the Premier League now, isn't there? And I think the Premier League spending has gone through the roof. So we're having to go to Spain and sign players. I mean, it's madness that we're talking about signing the Villarreal centre forward, really, isn't it? If you actually look at it and go, well, Villarreal were in the Champions League semi-final 2 seasons ago. Nobody should be wanting to leave a club of that sort of that stature and where they've been playing to come to team bottom of the Premier League. But there's so much money in the Premier League that it's a Super League, isn't it? Let's be really clear about it. It's a Super League now, and the Championship, it takes a real special player to come up and bed straight in. And I'm struggling as I'm sat here talking to you, trying to think of some examples of other clubs in the last 2 or 3 years signed the lads for the Championship and in doing very well. I mean, not Forest have changed their whole team. They've literally gone and signed 20 players, and that not Forest team was was dominating the Championship for the last 6 months of the season. So yeah, of course, there's players there in the scouting network. They're no better than me, but I'm struggling to think of examples really.
That's really a big point you make about Nottingham Forest. They literally walked the Championship for the last 6 months, and a lot of them players was deemed surplus to requirements.
Yeah.
So I think it magnifies the point that you're making. There is such a huge gap in that, and you've got to really know the players, and you've got to trust your scouts to be buying from them sort of lower leagues. Are you guys mentally prepared, okay, not to be going to the Etihad, not to be going to Old Trafford, and to be going to the Den, to be going to Millwall, to be going to Sheffield United? Are you mentally prepared for that? Is that something you thought about? Richard, Joe Mellor, what's your take?
Absolutely. Definitely after the first half of the season, we're looking at those places next year, and we're thinking that's where we're going to be going. Unless we pull out, I think it's going to be a miracle, because like Richard said, the clubs above us just look so much better. The squads above us look so much better. Realistically, we are going to be looking, and mentally, we're going to have to be prepared. These young lads are going to have to be prepared to go to the Den. Yeah, it's not going to be good for them.
I've been there a few times this season, covering games of pitch football as I go on my travels, and it's a hostile place. It's a hostile place to play football. The fans have got, they've always had their own unique way, shall we say? The club have done a lot to clean up the club's image and the way they're portrayed. But again, it's a hostile place for away fans. Richard, what's your take on it?
I've got probably a different take than what I would have had a few years ago. My lad's 5 years old, and he's now, last couple of months, he's obsessed with football and wants to go to every single game that's possible. And obviously, with me being involved in a Saturday team, that's primarily Sundays and Wednesday nights and travelling here, there, and everywhere. But he would be absolutely devastated if we were to go out in the Premier League. I don't live in Southampton anymore. I moved away 2 years ago, so I live over in South Wales now. So, the coverage of the local football in terms of you don't get your BBC South Today, and you're relying on, I'm not even sure where they show the Championship goals on a Saturday night. It's on Channel 5 or something, isn't it? I think for him, and, I'm collecting the Panini stickers this year with him, and Southampton have got their own page in it, and he's buzzing when he pulls Ward Prowse shiny out. That's going to go. And so there's so much that you lose from not being a Premier League club. Personally, for me, when I went home and away with Saints until sort of 7-8 years ago, for a long, long time. And I love the Championship days. I love the League One days. They're absolutely brilliant as a single bloke going away and having a few beers at those sorts of places. Tickets are cheaper, and it was good fun. I think now that I've got my lad and seeing him, wanting him to be involved in seeing a Premier League game, and he's seen Cristiano Ronaldo this year, he's seen Erling Haaland this year. It's brilliant for him, isn't it? So I think the club are. Personally, I think the club are prepared to go down into the Championship and bounce back. And I think, otherwise, we haven't seen any panic from them at all. There's been not one panic signing. So they're either confident that they've got enough to be able to stay up and Nathan Jones is good enough, or that they're just go, we'll have a season, we'll develop these players for another year and we'll go again. I don't think the club are panicking. I am. I'm shitting myself. I don't want to go down at all, really. But the club seems quite calm with it.
I completely hear that, and the way you resonated that point with your lad and the Panini stickers. We're all around about the similar ages. We're all going through the same things in fatherhood. I couldn't abide to see my beloved Arsenal going down, and having explained to my lad that we're going to Sheffield United. No disrespect, Richard Poxon or Johnny Gascoigne, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's a tough one. I'm going to ask you the most toughest question I've asked you today, and it's going to be one of my closing points. Give me your 3 teams that will be relegated from the Premier League this season. How do you see it playing out? I'm going to go straight to Joe Mellor on this.
I'm going to say Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest, and Everton.
Go on, Joe Mellor. He's got a fighting spirit about him, that lad. I've got time for that. Got time for that. Richard, what's going through your mind?
Well, we got one that's being positive, so I'll be a realist, I think. I've got good mates that are Everton fans, so they're going to be upset with me. But I think Bournemouth, Everton, and I think Southampton will be the third one. We may get out of it. We may get out. Forest could get dragged in, or Wolves, but I think arguably, I think we might go this year.
It's a tough season. It's a tough place to be. The bottom of the Premier League is as compelling as the title race for me because you just can't work it out at the minute. I thought at the start of the season, Nottingham Forest would definitely be bringing in 38 players, but they seem to have found a little bit of form. Again, you wouldn't have expected West Ham to be around that. You probably wouldn't have expected Everton. I know they were in skin of their teeth last season, but you would have thought they got momentum, players in. So it's really hard to call this year. It's really hard to call. And I can see a couple of big scalps going myself. I really can. I think there'll be a few big teams on the rebuild for next season. I really do. I really, really do. Gentlemen, I've got to say, I thoroughly enjoyed having you on the Southampton podcast. Before we go, I just want to get some closing thoughts. Is there any closing statements from you, Richard? Anything you would like to add, my son?
If I'd like to have, well, I hope again. I want to eat humble pie, so I genuinely hope in 3-4 months' time, I'm looking back and we finished 14th in the table. Nathan Jones has got the keys to the city, and we've won, 1 or 2 trophies in the cup. That'd be nice. No, thank you for having me on. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Let's just hope that, like I said, I'm eating humble pie and we can do the business.
Joe, any closing statements from you, Squire?
Yeah, let's stay optimistic. Let's get out of this. Let's go win the League Cup.
All right, I've got time for that, lads. If it does go Pete Tong for you, we have got another show called Championship Chatter on Pitch Football. So it's not all bad news. We'll have you back on again in a different format. And I just want to say thank you ever so much for you boys for making yourselves available for my show here on Pitch Football. If you are watching this on our YouTube channel, please download our footy app. Pitch Footy is completely free. We've got merchandise giveaways, tickets, fan debates, competitions, you name it. We've got it. And if you're on the app already, please check out the Spotify for the adult versions of our shows when you're on the road. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Joe. It's been a great pleasure. And I'm wishing Southampton the very best for the remainder of the season. Up the Saints. Thank you very much.